Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well, it's that time again, folks, to take a look at what's going on the Senate floor. Oh, well, would you look at that? It's Groundhog Day. Another one of Joe Biden's nominees being grilled and getting exposed as a total partisan hack activist. The bane of all of these leftist Democrat nominees being confronted by, you guessed it, their own tweets. You know, there's one thing these blue anon phony politicians just can't resist, and that's using their Twitter accounts to go after Republicans and go after the evil orange man. We gotta talk about political bias in the media and in Washington. This video is perfect to make the case, plus it's an incredible viral moment from the Senate floor involving Josh Hawley and Biden's newest nominee. Boy, do I got something to show you guys today. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so the clip from the Senate floor is a little bit long. I'll try to condense it as best as I can, but I don't think it needs too much explanation. Let's just take a look and then we'll have a conversation afterwards.
I asked you to provide the public posts that had previously been available on Twitter because the ones that we have were pretty disturbing. You responded as follows, and I quote, "My personal Twitter account is comprised of posts about my mystery novels, events at the White House Historical Association, Pittsburgh sports teams, travels, and my dog," end quote. Is this an accurate statement?
Yes, Senator.
I just remind you you're under oath. Is this an accurate statement?
Yes, Senator.
Would you give all public posts that you had made on Twitter? You said no, effectively, and you said that your Twitter posts consisted of mystery novels, events at the White House Historical Association, Pittsburgh sports teams, travels, and my dog. And you just told me now under oath that you stood by that. So now let's talk about your Twitter posts. 26th of May, 2022. You talk about an assault weapons ban, retweet a post, ban assault weapons now. Say you agree with this idea that you have to be a certain age to buy so-called assault weapons in America. Is that a post about sports teams or your dog or mystery novels?
My social media is in my personal capacity, Senator.
Yes or no, Ms. Shogan? You are under oath before this committee, and I have to say, you have placed this issue squarely in record by repeatedly refusing to answer. Yes or no?
My social media is in my personal capacity, Senator.
So you're not answering my question. Let's talk about another post. What about the post on January 5th of 2021 in which you say that Ted Cruz ought to stay in his own lane and not worry about what's going on in Pittsburgh? This is a reference, I think, to questions he had about the certification of the last election. Is that a post about your dog or sports teams or mystery novels?
My social media is in my personal capacity, Senator.
What about the post, you remember December 10th, 2020, where you said that you were hoping that President Trump would have his vetoes overridden and you agreed with the post that he was a weak policy president? Is that a post about your dog or sports teams or mystery novels?
My social media is in my personal capacity.
What about your post on January 5th, 2021, in which you speculated that President Trump would pardon himself next, participating in a conversation about the certification of the Electoral College? Is that a post about sports teams or mystery novels or your work at the White House Historical Association?
My social media is in my personal capacity, Senator.
What about the post? Do you remember this one? I said we seem to be having an incredible case of amnesia, but maybe you remember this one. This is from December 3rd of 2021, in which you advise an individual who goes by Meg on social media that the Library of Congress, you advise this person to complain about religious flags that have been planted on the grounds of the Library of Congress, and you say that they ought to be removed. And you go on to give this person advice about how to complain and have them removed. Do you remember that post?
My social media is in my personal capacity.
Do you remember the post?
My social media is in my personal capacity, Senator.
I have to say, I have been here for 4 years in the Senate. I have never seen a witness stonewall like this before. Never. And I've seen a lot. This is extraordinary. Do you remember this post? December 3rd, 2021.
My social media is in my personal capacity, Senator.
I mean, this is unbelievable. And you want to be the archivist of the United States. You lied to us under oath. You lied to us in your QFRs. You just lied to me a second ago under oath. And now you're sitting here stonewalling, not answering questions about public posts that you've made. The Supreme Court held that, in fact, it constitutes viewpoint discrimination for a government entity to remove religious flags from its property when it's opened up the property to allow other people to put flags on it. Exactly the question that you were addressing in your public posts on Twitter. You're giving legal advice, which you're not qualified to give, directly contrary to the United States Supreme Court. I just wonder, does this have to do with your view that you wrote about that the religious right is connected to the rise of anti-intellectualism in American politics? Is that why you said what you said about religious flags, that the religious right is a force for anti-intellectualism? Explain that to me.
No, Senator.
Do you stand by your comment that the religious right is part of the rise of anti-intellectualism in American politics?
Senator, that article was written. It was about how Republican presidents use common sense terminology to effectively communicate with Americans.
Yeah, in which you said that the religious right, the rise of the religious right is part of the rise of anti-intellectualism in American politics. I just point out that's the article in which you say anti-intellectual, the title is Anti-Intellectualism in the Modern Presidency, Republican Populism. Very nonpartisan. Dr. Shogan, I'm going to ask you again, will you give to this committee your public posts on Twitter? Will you make them available to this committee?
My social media is in my personal capacity.
Mr. Chairman, I have to tell you, this is the most extraordinary thing I have seen in my brief time in the Senate. I have never seen a witness blatantly lie under oath like Dr. Shogan has just done to this committee.
You are lying under oath. Josh Hawley absolutely exposing and absolutely slamming Joe Biden's newest nominee to be Archivist of the United States. And it's the same thing every single time. How to get a leftoid? Just take a look at their Twitter account, and you'll find generally all kinds of vile tweets, or in this case, if they're being nominated into a position that theoretically they should be neutral acting, expose their explicit partisan bias and activism. I find it funny how the leftoids now know. She came in ready with her choreographed response.
My social media is in my personal capacity.
In fact, she was so prepared for her tweets being mentioned that she also very conveniently put her Twitter account on private ahead of her nomination hearing. But of course, that never works. I mean, there's internet archives for a reason. All of her tweets are very easily accessible, and it's kind of interesting, maybe a little bit ironic. I mean, you think somebody who's being nominated to be the Archivist of the United States would probably know a thing or two about internet archives, but apparently not. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are probably questioning, I mean, what's the significance of this? Who really cares? People have personal Twitter accounts, which of course, you know, valid point, I agree, but it's not about this particular case. It's just one viral moment that first of all is entertaining, but secondly helps make a point. The overwhelming bias in Washington and in the media, whether that be TV media or social media, we always see the exact same thing. All of these individuals in government departments, government agencies, working for various different networks or working in tech and in the social media world are overwhelmingly left-wing, incredibly biased, and it goes beyond bias. I mean, as you can see by this individual's tweets, they're basically leftist activists. It's a club, and if you're not left-wing, if you're not woke, then you're not invited. You don't fit in. And in a position like this of all places, considering the most recent news, I don't know about you, but I have serious concerns. The NARA, the National Archives and Records Administration, is currently involved in a pretty big scandal, launching an investigation that, in my opinion, led to the illegitimate raiding of a former president's home, all the while hiding the fact that the current president of the United States, sleepy, creepy, piss-pants Joe Biden, was illegitimately and illegally in possession of classified documents dating all the way back to 1970-something, the 1970s, and they hid that information ahead of the November midterm elections, of course protecting the current Democrat in office, Joe Biden, but signing off on the raiding of the former Republican president's home, Donald Trump, possibly interfering in the midterm elections. And now moving forward, the next action the Biden administration takes is putting a straight-up left-wing activist in a position of power at the National Archives and Records Administration. The timing doesn't get any worse than this. Left-wing political bias is becoming a plague on the nation. There's no more rule of law, there's just rules for thee and rules for me. Rules for Democrats and rules for Republicans, or rather no rules for Democrats, and illegitimate persecution of Republicans who haven't broken any rules. The FBI and the DOJ criminalizing the act of merely being a Republican and existing, meanwhile taking action to protect Democrats at every point and turn. Let's not forget the Twitter files from a month ago, social media executives at Facebook, Twitter, and most likely YouTube as well, colluding with FBI agents behind the scenes to censor the most significant political scandal of my lifetime, protecting protecting Hunter Biden, and of course by extension Joe Biden, who's involved, ahead of the 2020 election. It's the same thing, the same trend. Federal agencies are doing it, the media's doing it, and the whole deck is stacked against Republicans, conservatives, pretty much anybody that isn't a mainstream corporate Democrat. They do the same thing to people like Andrew Yang and Bernie Sanders. It's a whole corrupt machine. The whole American system claims to be democratic, a democracy, but really it's just the illusion of choice. The American system has been so deeply infected, and this one moment on the Senate floor is a symptom, or it's a microcosm of the whole. That's basically the conclusion that it brings me to. That's what I got, at least, and that's also what I got for you guys in this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Of course, you know that we would love to have you guys here at the Liberal Hive Mind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.